spend 5 minutes on 3 different programs, just to give you a little idea of the sort of the kind of work we do in the senior division here. First of all, I got into this field sort of as a mid-career, late career change. I was a communications major, as a matter of fact, in college, and I worked in various areas in communications, and then became a writer, a journalist, and then eventually a fiction writer as well. So that's my background, and I really went into this field because I was like, I need to find something to make a living here, a little bit more than freelance writing. And my mother was aging. She lived in the East Coast. I brought her out to San Francisco, and I went through the process of the last 15 years or so of her life. She was someone who had severe mental illness, so I had been a caregiver for her for much of my life, and she also developed dementia. So the combination eventually meant, and because of my house with stairs and all kinds of things, that she did need to live in a skilled nursing facility for the last 5 years of her life, and I thought this is going to be the worst time ever for anybody. I felt so terrible about it, but I found her a place in San Francisco that was a very small, family-run place. And I told them, she also didn't have any money at this point, so I told them, look, if you let her in here on Medi-Cal at that point, because that's the only way people who don't have lots of money can afford nursing homes or can get into nursing homes, I will be here every day, and I'll make sure my friends are here every day. And I kept that promise. And actually, it was a really wonderful time. Not everything great about a nursing home, let me tell you, but she actually blossomed in this place because partly because I was there every day. I brought my friends in. We would take trips. We'd load them up on Delancey Street school bus, take them to the Hyatt for drinks, go to the zoo, go to the beach. I mean, when you have people in wheelchairs, it's actually quite easy everybody gets somebody that steers them around, and you can go all over the place. So we did lots of great things like that, and some of my friends ended up going into nursing and other professions, and I went into social work. I said, I want to work with older adults after this. And everybody said, well, you need a degree. So I went to UC Berkeley and got a master's degree in social work, and that's how I ended up here. I came in to volunteer because they said to me, you've never actually had a job in the field. How do you know you really want to do it? So I came in to volunteer, and I left with a job. I didn't know it was a job interview, but it turned out being a job interview. So I started working in our older adult day support center. I stayed there while I was going to school and got my MSW. And then I had an opportunity to work with the city or Felton, at the time Family Service Agency, and it wasn't a hard decision for me. I really wanted to work in community-based services and an organization like Felton. I've been here ever since. So that was, I think I first became connected in 2004, so it's been quite a few years. And then I followed, I've been the senior division director for about a decade now. So I mentioned this sort of aging mental health in my own family. I had both connections personally, but most people are connected to the aging world or to mental health world. In our field, everything's siloed because of funding. Basically, most of the aging services funding comes from the Older Americans Act, from health care, around dementia, would come from primary care, that kind of thing. Mental health is coming from different funding sources, and these two worlds do not talk. So one thing I want to say about the senior division that's quite unique is that we have this very specialized geriatric mental health model that really is very, very unique. I go to lots of conferences on both sides. Mental health conferences, they don't talk about older adults very rarely. Aging conferences, they have mental health, but they're usually only talking about dementia, and they just don't overlap. I'll give you one more example of when I talk to both sides, because our contracts are about half of our division is aging services, and we get funding from the aging world, half is from mental health, and we get it from there. When I speak to different groups and different committees or whatever, if I talk about the villages, now have any of you heard of the village model here? Okay, well, the mental health side, the village model is very famous for starting in LA. It's where the Mental Health Service Act programs came from. It's about recovery in a mental health term, meaning hope, and many of the things that Carol talked about. It's about, rethinking how mental health services are delivered. And the 1%, the millionaires are still taxed in California, that has that big pot in Sacramento that Felton gets quite a bit of. We were the first organization in San Francisco to go after that funding when it first came out 10 years ago, when we got all the contracts we went for. So that was transitional age youth, adult, older adult, and a drop-in center, 2 older adult programs. All that money is about transforming the mental health system, bringing in a system of hope and using peers and rethinking. And so when I talk about the village model in the mental health world, they all know what I'm talking about. But when I talk about in the aging world, they are talking about a different kind of village. That kind of village model is started in Boston, Beacon Hill, the first model where the older adults got together and created a collaboration so that they would, really an association more, that they would share their resources to, if they need home care or they need any kind of services, they'd get a discounted rate. And they would also volunteer when they were younger to help each other. So as they aged in this association, they would have a village, even though they didn't live together in an assisted living place, but they had a village. And in San Francisco, there's 3 villages. It's very popular. The Board of Supervisors supports it with funding. There's 400 official ones around the country, and it's growing. So when I talk about those village things, they're both wonderful models. None of them know about each other. So when I'm at a mental health meeting and I talk about the other village, oh, I want to know about that. Oh, I want to know about that. So just to say that, these worlds do not talk to each other. So we are a real crossover in San Francisco and beyond. The other way we're unique is we really are multidisciplinary in our delivery of mental health services. There are wraparound services, there's ACT programs, there's other mental health programs where there's a multidisciplinary team, but we carry it a few steps further, meaning our peers, who are people with lived experience, usually older adults, not always, but usually have come through either mental health or substance abuse issues themselves or their families. They really get it. They are equal partner with a psychiatrist. So this is kind of radical, it really is. I mean, the health system is so hierarchical that that's not usually the case. But we have worked very hard, and it's working very well to have peers, clinical case managers who are more licensed or master's level, nurse practitioners another level, and then our psychiatrists all really working together. And as that team, they also go out and work collaboratively, particularly with supportive housing. That's where a lot of the partnerships started, but with other agencies around that will serve our clients. We're very much in need. And my background is the Society of Friends, Quakers, because I'm from Philadelphia. I went to a Quaker school. So I've been really sort of, entrenched in consensus and collaborations. To me, it's very, very natural, but it's not a natural thing often in our world. We are a very competitive world. In the for-profit world, of course, we're competitive, and nonprofit world, same thing. I mean, everybody's got their programs they're trying to promote. But I think we have really stood out as being strong collaborators. And this is very important because in the aging services world, I am often the only person at the table who knows really anything about mental health, and vice versa. When I'm in the mental health world, we're there trying to represent older adults. And there's a dual stigma in our culture with aging and mental health both. So our folks suffer from that, and we are there to be advocates. So that's another important difference. This specialty we have, we also, we were fortunate with the Mental Health Service Act dollars to really have a full continuum of care, serving serious mental illness. We're not talking about, depression that all of us usually as adults will go through at some point in our life from some situation, grief or what other losses. There are other folks who can serve people who have that. Usually now it's through healthcare, through your healthcare insurance. But we really serve folks that have serious mental illness, and persistent, which is usually mood disorders, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or severe depression. And but we serve a full continuum because some folks need our highest level of service, where the full service partnerships, the Mental Health Service Act dollars, where that whole team will work with an individual, and the caseloads are very small, 12 to 13 for the whole team. So people are being seen every day until we can step them down. Our next level, we have intensive case management, which is a little larger caseload, but still has a lot of the components of the full service partnerships in that, we meet as frequently as we need to. peer involvement, that kind of thing. And then we step down to a geriatric outpatient services, which is really, once a month. We may see people the rest of their lives because that's how they're going to be able to remain in the community and functioning well. But we try, of course, even step them down further to a group therapy, sort of community integration model, where they can be part of a community, because we know in San Francisco many older adults live alone. They came here, to escape their families in the 50s and 60s to be bohemians, or, the 60s. Or because of their severe mental illness, they've had separations from their families. So most of our folks do not live alone. We also have another component of the diversity of our older adults. At this point, about 50% of older adults in San Francisco are Asian or Pacific Islander, many of them monolingual Cantonese. And so we also serve those folks because that's a whole nother area of isolation and need. So this continuum of care, we will step them down all the way to senior centers, adult day health centers, whatever we can. And that's very unique. We really don't know of any other, particularly in California, but I don't know any other areas that are really serving that whole continuum, and it's partly because we have this additional funding from the Mental Health Service Act that allows us. So we're starting to replicate that in other counties, which is great. We just got a contract in Alameda County, so that's our first county, and I think it's important because there's a lot of need in the Bay Area. So we're looking forward to growing our geriatric mental health.